Oh, we got his time.
We do have live audio. We still have 2 minutes.
Okay. We're live. This is the awkward part of Start with Safety.
I'm gonna grab something real quick from behind you. Nope, behind you. No, that's fine. Reason I can just see my phone. I can put my phone up for a timer.
I don't know. I feel like we should just start. We should just start and give Sarah 2 extra minutes.
That's why I'm laughing, because price is not where I would stand. For good stuff, find that. However, Green River has a really.
We do it?
Yeah,
Wait.
we got 9:59, so.
Wait for Joy.
We're live, guys.
Okay, we're live. We're gonna start. It's May 6th, 2025, still right? Do I have my year right? May 6th, Start with Safety 2025. We're at the Utah Safety Council Sandy office. Yeah, we are, yes. It's getting this building bought and remodeled has been many years long process, but we're not quite there yet. We'll be operating at our Salt Lake office through June, but the plan, if everything goes right, is that we'll be fully operational 100% in Sandy on July the 1st to kick off our fiscal year 26. If you're interested, the address here is 11075 South State Street in Sandy, home of Salt Lake Real, which is in Sandy, but it's Salt Lake Real, but it's Sandy. Just like the Utah Safety Council will now be in Sandy, Utah. So keep up on the moves and the progress. We'll post things on our social media outlets, emails, and websites. We're very excited to be here in Sandy. Along with the building, which is about 8,000 square feet, it has 2 levels. We even have an elevator, a couple kitchens, a great training room. We have updated technology for classes here, so come check it out. Today, if you're seeing this, you can get down here. We'll be here for about another 2 hours. But fresh logo to go along with the building. We'll shoot that out here shortly. We're very excited about that. Fabian and the crew has been working diligently on a fresh new logo to go along with the new building. So very excited. So let's talk about May though. May marks Mother's Day on the 11th. We will be so I want to say happy Mother's Day in advance to all the moms out there and the moms in the office. It's the most important holiday of the year, if you don't know. To celebrate Mother's Day, we'll be in the office half a day on Friday, May the 9th, coming up. But we are available via emails and phone calls the whole day. But we'll only physically be in the office in Salt Lake till about noon. Other important May dates: on May the 12th, we will be closed. It's a hybrid day, so we'll be working and recovering from Mother's Day from the previous Sunday. But the office will be physically closed, but we'll still be available, emails and phone calls, and we'll still be able to schedule and take care of your needs that way. May the 23rd, the Friday before Memorial Day, is also a hybrid day. So again, working from home or remotely, and then again, still available phone calls and emails. And of course, we will be closed. The office will be closed for Memorial Day, Monday, May 26th. And then June, as we roll into June, it's National Safety Month. So our team here is working with the governor's office to make a declaration for National Safety Month, and we're very excited about that. We'll have a couple of announcements as we work with our partners at the National Safety Council on things that we're trying to accomplish in June for National Safety Month. But that's all I have. So I am going to bring up Fabiana, who will officially get this meeting started. Start with safety for May. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'm very excited to be here at the new office. This is a very beautiful building. And to, like John mentioned, like release this new logo that is coming up. So I'm very excited and happy about it. For the news for Utah Safety Council coming up, we have our annual meeting and awards on October the 3rd, and we are accepting applications. So please check our website, check our social media, um, send your applications so we can review them and get nominations in October. Next, it's Women in Safety. Let me just tell you, our mission for Women in Safety is to empower women in the safety roles through recognition, elevation, and professional developments. Throughout the year, we do different events, and one of the, oh, is it closer? Can you guys hear me well?
Speak a little more to them.
Okay, gotcha. I'm walking around. We do different events, and we have 2 events so far. Our coming event is in June. It's with Rachel Royal. She is our guest speaker for June 26th at 11:30, and it will be here at the new office. So you guys all got to come here and check up and have our new office and just have a tour and have fun with us and with Rachel. She's amazing. And please register, check our websites, check our social media. I'm gonna be sending a lot of posts. So yeah. And next we have Quentin, and he will be talking about some membership benefits.
Thanks, Bobby. Quickly, we'll just go over our membership here. So I'll kind of, tell you how you can use that with my program a little bit. I'm the emergency care program manager here. So one of the benefits that you can use for our membership here is you do get a free first aid, CPR, and AED training course with your membership. So if you need to use that and like to use that, shoot me an email and I'd love to get you guys into one of our classes. Additionally, there is discounts on a lot of our products as well. So that's another big benefit for utilizing your membership is getting those discounts on those training products, as well as members get free AED trainings after they purchase an AED through us. So if you guys are looking at getting an AED, we can send Brandon Stone out to kind of tell you guys how to use it and train your team on how to use that AED to the best of your ability. Additionally, we do have some emergency care courses coming up with our IDC going from May 19th to the 21st. And then we do have a first aid CPR AED class on May 14th. These classes are still being held in Clearfield. However, this is the last 2 classes of emergency care that are going to be held up there. Then we'll be coming down to the new building. So next I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker here, Sarah Galvez. Let's see. Oh, I skipped one too far. I'll quickly read her description here, her bio here. Sarah Galvez, ASP, is a risk manager specializing in workplace safety and accident prevention. She holds CWCA and TRA certifications and is pursuing her CRM designation with a BS in public health and EMT certification. Sarah brings strong expertise in safety, health, and risk management. She serves on the ASSP Utah Chapter Executive Committee and is a passionate advocate for our women in safety. So let's go ahead and give it up for Sarah and get into her presentation.
Thank you guys for having me. I always love coming to the Utah Safety Council, and I love the new building. It is great. I am very passionate about speaking on the topic of suicide awareness and prevention, and May is Mental Health Month. It's a very important topic, and it's close to my heart, and so I'm very passionate about it. So I guess I'll go back. We're going to be covering what QPR is. We're going to do some grounding methods, and then I will talk to you about some experiences of mine that I've had. We will talk about some statistics and methods, which a lot of people like to leave out when they do suicide presentations, just because they feel like it can be triggering. But I feel that that information is also very important, and it's something that we should talk about. So as we get into it, we have to talk about the way we talk about suicide. So what are some words that you think of when it comes to suicide? Anybody, you can say anything if you want. What? Help?
Too late.
Too late? It's interesting. Anybody else? You don't have to. Well, a lot of people, they use words like selfish, maybe cowardly. I've heard people use words like brave and strong. Those are not usually words that I associate with suicide, but I do realize that people need to justify the deaths of their loved ones however they can, right? Um, so it's important the words that we use when we talk about suicide. So usually when somebody dies by suicide, you hear somebody say like, oh, they committed suicide, they had a successful suicide, or you hear people say they had a failed suicide. And our words have meanings, right? Usually if somebody committed something, it was successful, they followed through with something, that usually means it was something positive. And when somebody has a failed suicide attempt, right, you say they failed, they were unsuccessful, those have negative meanings. And you never know who is listening to you talk, right? When you're in the line at the grocery store, you're out having lunch, you're sitting at the park talking with your friend, and you don't know what people around you might be dealing with. They might be like, I want to be successful at something. I want to complete this. I'm going to follow through with this. Or maybe it's somebody who is a suicide survivor and they're like, I couldn't even kill myself, right? I'm a failure at everything. And so it's important that you use the right words. So, like, I can't even say anything other than died by suicide. I have to think about it. And that's how you should say it is, you know, they died by suicide. If somebody attempted suicide, the suicide survivor. It puts a different meaning to those words. And it really is powerful. I know somebody who used to drive a school bus, a special ed bus, and there was a kid on that bus who had tried to kill himself, and his mom found him and she saved him. But he is in like a motorized wheelchair for the rest of his life. You know, his quality of life in general is not great. And but it's glorified that he is a suicide survivor. He meets celebrities, all kinds of stuff. People give him things all the time. He had a younger brother, like 7 years old, who like just wanted to be like his brother, maybe wanted some of that attention. And he unfortunately did die by suicide. His mom didn't find him. And so it is important how we talk about suicide. Oh, where do I need to point it?
Should be trying.
Okay. So here are some statistics we're going to go through. So this is the 2023 data. The 2024 data isn't finalized, but you can see over 50,000 or 49,000 deaths every year by suicide. The numbers were the same for 2022. That's one person every 11 minutes, which is a lot. And you can see the attempted suicides, plan for suicide, and people who have seriously thought about suicide, right? Those are such high numbers, very mind-blowing, especially, you know, for some of us, we just feel like we're just not wired that way. So it's hard to even imagine. So this is the suicide rate. You have your age range and then the men and women, the difference. So 85 plus is the highest. Can anybody, like, what are some ideas why that might be? You guys have anything? Yeah, like the reason maybe that's the highest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, men are make up 50% of the population, but are 80% of the suicides. And for a lot of it is that reason is that women are more likely to seek out help than men. There's been that stigma, which, you know, everybody's been working on trying to change. With the numbers, 85 plus, you know, it could be just that they're aging. It could be they don't want to be a burden on a loved one, on the children. Maybe their spouse that they've been married to for 50 years has died. Maybe they want to have some kind of death with dignity. They want to choose how they're going to die. 75 to 85, probably kind of similar. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the 75 to 85, kind of similar. And then you have the 35 to 44-year-olds. That has a lot to do with, which I would think, and you look at some of the statistics and things that people say, but that's when people have financial burdens. Maybe they're getting divorced, they're having maybe their own health issues, that kind of thing. There's a company in Salt Lake, I'm sure there's several companies right now that are doing layoffs, but there's this one company in particular, it's a very big company, and they're doing big layoffs. And I know of at least 4 people who have died by suicide since they've been laid off. It's, it's mind blowing. I say that tons during this presentation that it's just mind blowing. Yes.
Just my personal observation, years ago, I worked as a CNA and took care of elderly people. Women deal a lot better, in my experience, with the infirmities of age where you have various and sundry health issues. And mostly the women were like, the best of what we can do and all that stuff. And the men didn't do well. It's like, it defines them to be, robust and masculine and do all this.
Yeah.
And you start taking some of that away because you do in those older age illnesses, and they just don't know how to. They don't know how to sit there and doze or whatever. Where the women, if life hands you lemons, let's make lemons.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. My dad is suffering from some health stuff, not saying that he's suicidal, but he was forced into early retirement. He can't ride his motorcycle anymore. He still wants to contribute, he wants to find a way to make money. It is very difficult. It's like my mom's like, we need to get dad up out of the house. I'm like, call some friends or something, have them take him to lunch. But yeah, it's hard for him because he wasn't ready to retire. He wants to be out working, contributing and supporting his family. It's very hard for him. It's really hard. Oh, okay. It's question said, can I restate what you had said? And she was just saying how for elderly men, it's hard for them when their freedoms or kind of their health and their ability to do things is being taken away from them, and how it's easier for women. Women are more like, life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, you make the best out of it, but it's harder for men having that taken away from them. Okay. So the age range, back to that real quick, 15 to 24. That's sad that is even up there. But for that age range, suicide is the second leading cause of death. And it's so sad. And so there is a big, they said firearms are a big contributor, that young boys in this age range have access to firearms that they didn't have before. And that is a big contributing factor to the numbers here. And going back to also like how we talk about suicide, there was a time when my younger daughter, she was in school, there was a girl that lived by our house. I have 2 schools by my house, and she was hit and killed on Halloween in a crosswalk. It was dark, and she was hit and killed. And all these girls who didn't even know her are all just like so sad, and we're all gonna kill ourselves. And so of course, the school has to let me know, and they're like, we think it's just something they're all talking about. It's just kind of a fad. But somebody standing around listening to you talk about suicide a certain way, and all these girls are like, we want to kill ourselves. That's the reason you need to be careful. But yeah, so it's really sad. And so also with the suicide, men are usually more successful when it comes to suicide than women. They usually use firearms. Women are more likely to poison themselves or hang themselves. And it's really sad. I have a friend, she was in the hospital for about a month. I think she just got out probably like a month ago. She took a bunch of pills. She tried to kill herself. Um, Obviously she didn't die, but she really messed herself up. She was on dialysis. She couldn't walk. I'm surprised how well she's doing. I was at a funeral Saturday. My friend's younger brother, who was, I want to say he was like 24, shot and killed himself. It's sad. It just happens so much. So like we were talking about methods, firearms are most commonly used. Then you have the poisoning, the suffocation, which the hanging. You know, my kids have a cousin on their dad's side, 12 years old. She hung herself. We have a friend, family friend. My brother was killed in Iraq back in 2006, and somebody that was in the vehicle with them, he was like burned over his whole body. And it was difficult for his children. They, you know, got a lot of bullying. People didn't want to play with them. Parents didn't want their kids to play with them because of how it might scare their kids because of what happened to their dad. And is one day she didn't want to go to school. She told her mom, I don't want to go to school. And her mom's like, honey, you have to go to school. Mom comes home, finds she'd hung herself in the closet, 10 years old. So now we're going to get into what QPR is. This QPR is really good. It's question, persuade, refer is what it stands for. And it's a mental health intervention, just like it says. So, and this is not like a QPR gatekeeper certification course. You can get online and you can take that. It's $30, I think. Yeah, it's $30 and it's not very long at all. But question. Now, like when I think of question, I think of saying, oh, are you thinking of killing yourself? Sometimes people come to you and you don't have to ask that question. But really, what question is, are you thinking about suicide and do you have a plan? When they tell you to question them, you're asking them if they have a plan. So I learned when I had a friend who she called me up and she's like crying and she's like, Sarah, I need you to take me to the hospital. I just want to kill myself. I don't want to live. Take me to the hospital. And when they asked her, when we get to the hospital, they ask her, do you have a plan? And she says, no. So they send her home. There's a big difference between wanting to die and knowing how you're going to die. And I knew I needed to ask her that question. And it is the hardest question I've ever had to ask is, do you have a plan? That's a real hard question to spit out. I've asked several people, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about making a permanent decision to a temporary problem? Which if you ever ask a suicide survivor, they will tell you they're not making a decision. It is the only solution to end their suffering. Which, I mean, I'll be honest, to me, I don't see the difference, but somebody who has lived as a suicide survivor will tell you there is a big difference and it is not a decision, it is a solution. So when you question them, you want to ask them if they have a plan. And if they do have a plan, you know, they say they're going to shoot themselves. Do you have access to the gun? Where are you getting the gun? Can I keep your guns? Can I keep your pills? You know, and there's no foolproof, like you can't go into somebody's house and take everything that they could possibly hang themselves with. And I mean, like I got a pharmacy at my house. Good luck getting everything out of there. But you want to try and do that. Can you stay with them? Can you come stay with me? Right? No. So persuade. You need to actively listen to what people are saying. Right? People know when you're genuine, when you care, when you're just like, ask them how they're doing because you're supposed to, right? If somebody is telling you how they're feeling or what's going on, you need to actively, genuinely listen. Okay. And like it says up here, you use those phrases. I want you to live. You know, I care about you. Let's get help together, right? Let's call 988. Let's find a counselor for you. Let's find therapy. Let's go to the doctor, you know, all that kind of stuff. You want to have that plan with them. What are we going to do? Get them to do it with you. Saying, hey, you know what, you should go to therapy is not creating a plan. Okay. And that's really important because I've done that. It's just said, hey, you should go to therapy. No, let me help you find a therapist. Let's do this together. Okay. And then refer. Refer to resources, call or text 9118, 988. And refer them to programs, right? Like, hey, your company has EAP, or I know this person, I know that person, let's do this, okay? And I say report, it says refer, but I also say report, sorry. Because if somebody is right there at the edge, you want to have the police come. The police can stop them. You know, I had a friend who he called me up and he couldn't get a hold of his wife. And he's like, I think she's, going to kill herself. I think she took all these pills and I can't get a hold of her. And, you try and get a hold of her. The phone went dead when I was on the phone with her. And I said, have the police ping her phone, find out where she's at. If you're worried, do this. And he's like, oh, she's going to be so mad. And I was like, well, if you think she's going to kill herself, you need to do this. And if she isn't, at least she's going to be alive to be mad at you, right? Have the police intervene when it's needed. So like I said, you can get online. You can do the gatekeeper course online. And it goes through all this stuff, and you can have an in-person trainer as well. So like, this is something you could talk to your work about for, mental wellness month. Say, hey, let's have somebody come out and do a training on QPR. And you get to, at the end of it, you scan a little QR code QR code. Ugh. And it tells you, you've completed this gatekeeper course. You get little pamphlet kind of card things that have information that you could hand out to somebody if you were talking to them about suicide. It has helpful information on it. And so the QPR course is really great to do individually, or like I said, as a company, maybe even as family sometimes, so your kids are prepared. And so that is what QPR is. And it really is great. And I wish I had known about QPR sooner. I'd never even heard of it until I was at a conference. So it really is a great resource. So next, what we're going to talk about is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. It's a grounding method, commonly used for like anxiety, stuff like that. But it's great. Last time I did this course at the Utah Safety Council, somebody said, oh, wow, I hadn't heard of this one. We use breathing techniques, but this is better because it really takes your mind off it. Like, you really have to think about it different. So this is we're going to do this together. I know some of you guys are taking notes, but we're going to do this together so that when you go to do it, if you ever go to do it, you remember because you already did it yourself. Okay, so 5 is you're going to look around the room and you're going to name 5 things that you see, right? It can be anything, right? Maybe it's outside, whatever. It can be, and you guys don't have to say them out loud or anything, but there's a fire extinguisher on the wall. There's a cool picture on the wall. There's a camera. There's stairs outside. I'm looking at the backpack over there. And so you're distracting, right? You're breaking what your mind is thinking of. So next you do the 4 things that you can touch, right? I can touch my hair. I can touch this cord on my phone. I can touch this cup, right? I can feel my pants. And then 3 things you can hear. I can't hear a lot, but yep, I know. You can hear the AC, right? Maybe there's a bird outside. Maybe you can hear cars driving by, right? Maybe it's just going to be tapping. And then 2 things that you can smell. Coffee. I was telling Joy, it's like, it smells really good in here. She's like, it's an air freshener. And then something that you can taste, right? And the point is to just break the cycle that your mind is in. A lot of times suicide happens in a 10-minute moment of crisis. And so if you can get people through, like, you break that 10 minutes, a lot of times they're okay for the time being. You have to distract their mind and take it off of it. So next we're going to talk about stories. So this is Andy. This was on his 38th birthday. You can see this is his Instagram post, is very positive. It's my birthday. I'm another year older. I'm wiser, reflecting on the past. I'm excited for the unknown, feeling grateful for every person who's had an impact on my life, makes me who I am. Be positive, smile, right? Pretty good post. And then this is Andy, and this is our son Max. And this is June 18th. They were at the Garth Brooks concert up at the U. And the next day was Father's Day. They went golfing. And then Monday, Andy brings Max home. Andy goes to work. Tuesday morning, Andy shoots and kills himself. And this is the last picture that Max has with his dad. And it's just, oh, it's crazy. It's so hard. This is why I do this. But Andy had called me the night before. It was like 12:20 or 12:30 or something like that. And he was distraught. He was the most distraught I'd ever heard him. And I asked him, I said, are you thinking about making a permanent decision to a temporary problem? And he said, I'm trying not to. I was like, think of your parents, think of your brothers, think of Max. And he was like, Max is the only thing that's been keeping me hanging on this long. And I'm like, that kid loves you more than he loves me, and you know it. And he's like, he's the only thing that's been keeping me hanging on. And then he changed, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go home. And he had told me, he's like, I drove up to Oakley. I don't have ID. I don't have money. I don't have anything. So he's just in the middle of the mountains. And I'm thinking, like, should I call police? What should I do? And then he said he's going to go home. And I'm like, okay. But it's like, thinking about it, like, obviously the thought crossed my mind. I asked him, but I didn't do anything. Like, I thought, oh, should I call the police? And I tell myself, well, I don't know his license plate number. Where in Oakley could he be? Like, I talked myself out of doing something because I know Andy, right? And Andy wouldn't do this. And so I talked myself out of doing something that night, but he went home and he got up the next day, but then he killed himself. And when he went home, before we got off the phone, I said, you need to check in tomorrow. Okay. I said, you need to call me. If you don't check in, I'm going to send people to your house. And I know you don't want to do that. So I call him in the morning. He doesn't answer. I text him. He doesn't answer. And I know that sometimes after he's had a bad night, he'll call in sick to work. And so I'm just trying to tell myself, like, okay, maybe that's it. But I keep calling and keep texting. And I really wanted to go to his house, but something just kept me from going there. It's like, I need to be at this very pointless meeting this afternoon. I should just go to the office. And, when Max got up, I said, hey, I want you to text Dad every 30 minutes until you get a hold of him, and then let me know. And he's like, why? And I was like, well, it's Tuesday. Dad's supposed to pick you up and I can't get a hold of him. And about noon, I wanted to do a welfare check. And I told myself I was being silly. So about 2:00, I contacted his roommate, and she's like, well, he was there when I left for work. And she goes, you should take Max and go to the house. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she's like, well, I can't get home till about 3. I'm like, well, I couldn't get there till 3 either. So I'll just let you deal with it. And I had called his mom, and I was like, hey, have you heard from Andy today? Is he like maybe on his way to your house? Because she lives in St. George. And actually, before I called his mom, I got a phone call from an unknown number, which I never, ever answer, but I answered it, and it was a detective. And I said, why are you calling me? And he's like, why'd you call the roommate? And so I told him everything. And he goes, well, we can't bust down the door because the guy had a shitty night. So he's like, if we can't find a way into the house, we're just going to have to leave. So that's when I called his mom. I was like, hey, have you heard from him and all this stuff? And she goes, well, I think we need to find out if both of his cars are at the house. And I was like, they're both at the house. And she goes, did they tell you that? And I'm like, they're both there. And so then the line rang, and I answered it. And it was the detective to tell me that they had gotten into the house and that he was deceased, and it happened sometime in the morning. And so I know from my experience as an EMT that I should be the one to tell Andy's mom. So I asked the detective who was going to tell her. He said it should be me. And I will tell you that is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And I tell people if I ever need therapy for something, it is telling his mother. A mother is a mother, no matter the age, and you don't forget the screams. So that was very, very difficult. It was harder than telling my children. And you hear about that, like in this line of work, like the worst thing you'll ever do is tell somebody that their loved one died in a preventable workplace injury. I'll tell you, telling anybody that their loved one died unexpectedly is horrible. It doesn't matter how it happened. It is horrible. Sorry, I need a drink of water. So, and I think about QPR and I think about the things that I didn't do. And I didn't know about QPR or 54321 or any of this stuff. I asked him if he was suicidal, but I didn't ask him if he had access. I had no idea he had like a gun cabinet in his bedroom. We're divorced. I didn't know that, and he had these positive affirmations taped on his mirror. He was at my house like the week before saying these things, and I had no idea, and you think like, this is somebody, I know him, so I know what things are like. He wouldn't do this. I know him. And so you treat things differently. And that's a big thing. It's same like if the guy DJ Twitch, he was for Ellen, he was her, and he killed himself. And his wife is like, people all over the internet are like, he wouldn't do this. He was a happy, happy guy. He was popular. He was so happy and upbeat. And, nobody believed it. But after dinner, he went, no, thank you. Thank you. He had gone down to a hotel and he had killed himself. It's really important that we don't just think that we know somebody or that somebody is strong. There's a clip on the internet that I love because it's so powerful, and it is a girl. She's at a party, she's having a great time, she's dancing, smiling, laughing, and it says something like 12 hours later that she had killed herself. Check on your strong friends. So it's important not to put people in boxes, what we think we know of them. So our next story is Eduardo. He worked, he's not an employee of mine, but he worked where I worked. And he came into my office one day and his jaw was clenched. He was shaking. His hands were balled up into fists. And he was very, very visibly agitated. And he comes into my office and he says, Sarah, I want to kill my ex-wife. I want to kill her boyfriend, and I want to kill myself. And I'm just kind of like, whew, like, what? Like, I didn't even know what to say to him. It was incredibly triggering. I'll tell you, I am the victim of an attempted murder suicide. And so it was like my heart sunk in my stomach. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, what do I say to him? I'm telling him like, Eduardo, no, you don't want to do that. Like, I know things are hard. This is temporary. Things get better. And I'm like, just like murder is bad. Murder is very wrong. We know murder, don't murder people. Like, right. And I'm like, and you can't kill yourself. You cannot do that. I was like, think of your children. I was like, your children will not remember you for the amazing father that you were. Right. They're not going to remember all the good times that you had together. They're going to remember that you murdered their mother and that you killed yourself and now your kids are orphans. Like, right. And I don't know any, like I said, still don't know QPR, don't know grounding, don't know anything. And I'm probably said all the wrong things to him, but I had no idea what to say to him, and I'm teamsing HR and I'm like, I need EAP information like yesterday, right now. I need it right now. So I was talking to him like, we have EAP, you get like 3 free counseling sessions. I was like, but I do know with our health insurance, you get unlimited therapy. I was like, there's no cap. You can go as many times as you need to. I was like, and we have the same insurance. So you should go see a therapist. Like, and it was good that I had information to give him. I mean, no, I didn't make a plan with him. I was like trying not to hyperventilate, but I was able to say, hey, we have an EAP. This is what our EAP offers. And I do know that our health insurance has this mental health benefit. And so it's really good, like, especially if it's like a workplace kind of thing, to be familiar with what your company offers. Most companies have an EAP. So if you're talking to somebody who, is thinking about suicide, having them, saying, hey, your company probably has an EAP, you know, find out about it. I can help you find out. I can help you call HR. We can Google for some other resources. That kind of stuff is really important. But so Eduardo left. He left my office, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do now? Like, he came to me in confidence. Do I break his trust? Like, I don't know Eduardo. Like, I mean, like, I know him, but I don't know him, It's like, I don't know what he's capable of. Like, if I didn't tell somebody and he actually did this, like, how would I feel? I just had no idea what to do. And I'm like, and it's work. So there's probably some kind of legal obligation. And so I was like, okay, fine. So I go into the warehouse manager's 2 doors down, and I tell him what happened because I don't know how Eduardo is. I don't know if he has a gun. I don't know. I know what his mental state is crazy right now, but sorry, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. And I just don't know if he would do something to people now, like if we'd have a workplace violence situation. And so that was a big factor in me going and telling the warehouse manager first, just because like, hey, I don't know what's going on. Right. And so then I tell HR what's going on. And then I was off for a couple days, and I got a call from security saying, hey, we had to call the police for Eduardo. And that was the last I heard for months. I had no idea what happened to Eduardo. I thought about him every day. And one day I was walking out of the warehouse building, and he was walking in, and I'm like, oh my God, Eduardo. And he's like, Sarah. And I'm like, where have you been? What happened to you? Like, where? And he was just like, I had to go home. He's like, I had to go home, and I had to get help. And he's like, I just want to tell you, thank you. He's like, you saved my life. He's like, if it's not for you, I would be dead. And he had a little trinket that he'd been carrying around that he bought back home that he gave to me. But he's like, you saved my life. And a big part of the reason that had probably had some different outcomes is because the way I treated Andy and the way I treated Eduardo were very different, right? I don't know what Eduardo's capable of. I don't know if he's really going to go through with this. Andy would not do this to us. Andy would not do this to Max. He would never do this. So I didn't call anybody. I talked myself out of calling somebody. I told myself I was being silly, right? Like I'm overreacting. And I mean, I learned that if I had called for a welfare check, nothing would have happened because they won't just bust down the door. But I handled things so very differently. I wish I had gone to Andy's house that night, or that I had called the police and said, hey, this is what's going on. This is the conversation I just had. Can you go to his house? I wish that I had been better, like not just telling Andy, hey, see a doctor, get some antidepressants, go to therapy. I wish that I had taken more time to try and actually create a plan. I was so just telling myself like, oh man, if I call the police, Andy's going to be so mad at me. And I tell you, I would rather have the worst co-parenting search situation. I would rather have him hate my guts for my son to have his father, right? Max is learning things from friends and strangers and family and his dad's friends, having those experiences that he should be having with his dad, right? And that's why I do this stuff, is because I don't want people to have to go through the things that we've had to go through. And right now, construction has a very, very high rate of suicide. And, a lot of times they say, part of that reason, these guys are working long hours, they're getting up in the dark, they have strenuous jobs. There's a lot of, physical stress to their bodies. They work long hours. You have to miss a lot of things. And then you're in a culture where we don't really talk about our feelings. And that has a lot to do, they believe that has a lot to do with the rates of suicide in construction workers, but it's not just construction workers. Like Andy worked for a big brown company and he too would get up in the dark and he would come home in the dark. He would miss everything in the evenings. If Max needed picked up from school because he was sick, Andy couldn't go get him. And so there's a lot of jobs like that, and his job was very physically demanding. And so a lot of that stuff contributes, right? And then you have that stress as a man, being breadwinner, financial stressed out. I know that had a lot. It weighed on Andy a lot. You know, he felt one of those affirmations that he had taped on his mirror was to be a better father, right? And it's because he missed so much of Max's, I don't want to say his life, but you know, he doesn't get to go to the school things. He doesn't get to go to the baseball games and the soccer games. And his back always hurts and he twisted his ankle and needs surgery. And it's the same kind of thing. And I think for him to even talk about the suicide and stuff with me, I think he only did it because I was a trusted person. His best friend had no idea. And so a lot of it just has to do with that stigma. But we're trying to work through that. So the very bottom one might be hard. Oh, you can see it. So the total safety for construction, that's a really cool one that was put together by the Salt Lake Chamber. And what's great, like when I go teach this, I've done this one out of state, is that I'm like, Google and see if your city has some kind of resources like this. But even if they don't, if just saying because the Salt Lake put this together or, you know, whatever, Boise put this together, you don't need, it's great material and you can use it no matter where you are, right? You might not, if it talks about going to a specific office, maybe not, but the material is good and you can use it and you can share it. I'm always looking for new stuff and I love it when people send me stuff. The Live On Utah, that's another great one. That's one that I just found out about, oh no, a few months ago, I think when I was at another presentation. You know, I went to a presentation and her whole thing is asking the questions. She focuses on suicide in construction. And her big thing is asking the question, like genuinely, how are you? Are you okay? Start the conversation. But you have to be genuine when you do it. Like a lot of people, when it comes to Eduardo, they ask me, they're like, all the people he could have gone to supervisor, his manager, coworker, he came to the safety person. They're like, why? How did you do that? How did you build that with him that if anybody he could have gone to, he went to the safety person? And I tell him, I'm like, I feel like to be a good safety person, you have to be genuine. You have to genuinely care about people. People know when you're authentic and when you're just doing your job. And it's the same thing, like when you're talking to whoever it is you're going to talk to, you need to be authentic. You need to be genuine. You need to listen to them attentively. They need to be able to see that you care. And I had a coworker who wanted to talk to me. He had a friend good friend, he said, best friend, whose son died by suicide. And he's like, what can I do for him? How do I help him? And I said, the only thing you can do for him is be there for him. Be there for him after the funeral, right? So when somebody dies, everybody's bringing food and, oh, let me help you. I'll clean your house, anything like that. But once the funeral ends, so does all that help. You might have a couple friends that are still bringing you food, but everybody goes back to their normal lives and you're still sitting here and your world has been turned upside down and you're trying to grasp this new reality and everybody just goes back to life. And so I was telling them, you know, be there. I was even saying that to my kids for Max. Be there for Max in 6 months. Take him golfing, go to coffee. I was telling my friend this, like, just show up at your friend's house. Go do something with him, you know, but be there for him. I had a friend, her dad died by suicide, and she was complaining to my boyfriend at the time about me. And she said, Sarah has never once said to me, I'm sorry for your loss. And she's never once asked me if I'm okay since my dad died. And he goes, she said, but she asked me to go to lunch every single day. I am never alone. Sarah makes sure I never eat lunch by myself. you know, and that is how I showed up for her. I had a very hard time for a long time saying, I'm sorry for your loss after my brother's death, because I just got so tired of hearing it. But really, it's the only thing to say. So you show up for people, you be there for them. And another thing is when somebody's dealing with the loss of a loved one, their cup is empty, right? They have nothing to give. Their cup is empty. So saying, can I bring you dinner? Can I come clean? Can I do this for you? You just do it. Just show up with food. Just show up with cleaning supplies. Just show up to hang out, because asking them requires them to give you an answer, and they have nothing to give. And so you just do it, right? There's a good book that I recommend to people who are dealing with the loss of a loved one, and it's I Wasn't Ready to Say Goodbye, and it's dealing with the unexpected loss of a loved one. And it goes, it's not just suicide, but it's car accidents, it's murder, like it's all kinds of things. But it's a really good book. And if you have people that you want to help and be there for, there's even parts of that book that would help you to understand. Mhm.
With the experience that I had when getting road safety, when I started the safety program, I realized that people were coming to me, and I realized that I am not, qualified on that. So I actually called my insurance company up, and they actually just put me through a mental health program
Mhm.
free. And I actually got a certification for it. And I realized that the two people that came to me, I was not qualified, and I still am not qualified to deal with somebody that's in that situation. But I still have those employees coming to my office or even calling me at home on weekends. But they gave me a very good resource of realizing that no matter what experience I have gone through, it does not matter to that person that's sitting there. Their
No.
mindset is in a certain way that I am totally not qualified to give them any kind of advice. My advice on how I would do things is totally different from theirs.
Yep.
But gave me the resources just like this to help them. But I have found that sometimes that doesn't always work unless I actually push them. So I've actually left them in my office, called 988 with them on the phone, and says, here, let me leave the room. You can finish this conversation. I've been at home, and I've actually done a three-way call and got them, and then said, please call them back. If they do not answer, please call me back, and then I will do a welfare check on them. But I am totally not qualified. My advice to them is totally something that they're not, from what I got out of that class, is they're not even hearing what I'm saying, and does no good
Mhm.
possibly make this situation worse. Even though I think I'm helping, I'm actually, the best way is actually going through the resources, but
Yeah.
getting the best resources. But yeah, your insurance company through your company, I realize that they actually do have a mental health program, most of them. Because if you have like your life insurance or whatever in that, they want to help keep everybody healthy. So they
Yeah.
actually have those resources, and they more than likely they're free.
That's awesome. See, and I didn't know that. She was saying that she called her insurance company and that they had a mental wellness program, and they came out and they taught it like through work. So, yes. Yeah. See, and that's great. Just like doing a company course with the QPR mental, is it the mental first aid courses? That's different than this. Those are all great resources, but like I never would have thought to call the insurance company and see if they had a program to offer. That's a good one. I'll have to make note of that. But like you were saying, their mind isn't there. They're not hearing what you're saying when you're trying to help them. So when Andy died, I had to go straight to his house. I'm a need to see kind of person. I went straight to his house, and I was being interviewed by the detective, by the medical examiner. Um, I had to answer so many questions, and the detective asked me what questions I had. And I'm like, how do I get his body? What do I do about life insurance? Who's paying for Max's shots? You know, all these questions. And I said, I feel horrible. I said, I'm sitting here talking to you about money, and he is still laying in there dead. And he said, don't feel bad. He's like, Andy wasn't thinking about Max when he did this. He goes, if he was even thinking about Max, he was thinking Max will be okay because he has Sarah, and Sarah's strong. And he said, when somebody is ready to die by suicide, their mind has changed. The chemicals in their mind have changed. They are not the person that you know and love. And that's why it's also important not just Andy wouldn't do this. He goes, Andy isn't Andy anymore when he is at that point. And so like what you said, they're not hearing, their mind is, you have to use these resources. Like, I wish I had known anything about any of this when Andy talked to me or Eduardo talked to me. I've been fortunate. I've probably had 5 or 6 people come to me and tell me that they want to kill themselves. And Andy is the only person that did it, which sucks. Sucks for me. Sucks anybody would do it, but it's super hard. But one thing when you are being this resource to people is you need to take care of yourself too. The guy that came to me and said, hey, my best friend his kid shot himself. What can I do for him? He's like, it must be so stressful, like hard on you when people come to you and ask you for this kind of information or tell you that they're suicidal. And I was like, huh, you're right, it is. I was like, I didn't really think about it. But yeah, so making sure that you take care of yourself if you are the person who is offering these resources or that people are choosing to come to is also really important. You know, some of us just aren't wired this way and we just can never wrap our minds around it. I'm not wired that way. I can't wrap my mind around it. How this is your solution, how you could get that far into a depression. Like, people are different though. My daughter had to go to therapy for a while, you know, and one day her therapist kicked my daughter out of the room and her dad out of the room. And she's like, listen, she's like, you are not helping. She's like, your daughter is a very emotional thinker and you're a very logical thinker. And she's like, you have to try and think like her. And she's just like, no amount of reasoning or logic changes things. She's an emotional thinker. And sometimes when people come to you, they don't need you to lecture them or tell them murder is bad and killing yourself is bad and your children will be orphans, but they need you to listen. They just need a listening ear. And sometimes that helps a lot. So, do you guys have any questions? I should leave a few minutes for that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How can we help balance the feelings of I didn't do enough when we ultimately know that it's not necessarily our responsibility over someone else's life ultimately in the end? How do we balance those feelings of I could have done more versus they made that?
I am still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Because I feel that a lot. And I think honestly, it's just time. Time helps a lot, but telling myself like that same stuff, like I could have called the police. I could have done more. I should have done more, but I didn't know. I didn't know what I know at the time. And it's almost kind of feels like almost feels like survivor guilt. It's, I just keep telling myself that I did what I could do at the time. And like you said, ultimately it was his decision. It was his life. And I just have to tell myself, like, it's not my fault. I did what I could and it's not my fault, but I still feel guilty about it all the time. So that's, do you know anything? I don't know how to deal with it. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
There are some people that actually, they have that resource also, you know, they just said, you may have to go to these counseling yourself,
Mm-hmm.
just to get to realize that you are, if something does happen, it's not your fault.
Yep.
And you have to do the best you could.
Yeah. The detective, when I was talking to him, he said that he goes on like 4 or 5 of these calls a week, suicide calls. And he said that because he was talking to me about therapy, getting Max in therapy, doing some therapy myself. And he said he was actually at therapy when he got the call. And so, and even when I was doing my EMT stuff, they say you should go to therapy. The things you see here, you can't go back and talk to your family about. You know, and you should do some therapy. We had an injury at work and this lady almost ripped her foot off. It was dangling. And, you know, they offer counseling to all the employees who witnessed it and the people who were trying to help her, everything like that. And then I don't know when it was, but it was a little while later. And we were downstairs in the lobby, and HR is setting up for some health fair thing. And they were switching our health insurance. And I went up to the HR director and I was like, I yelled at her in front of everybody. You're switching our health insurance again? I just switched all of my doctors. And she's like, well, now you can switch them back. And oh, that made me mad. But she was like, Sarah, it crossed my mind that we never asked you if you were okay after that. She's like, we offered therapy to everybody, counseling to everybody but you, you know? And she's like, we never asked you. And I was like, I'm fine. But you know what? I was sitting in the hospital room with her husband, like, how are we going to pay bills? What are we going to do? What do I tell my children? And that stuff is hard and it takes a toll on you. So taking care of yourself it is important. And it's probably the best thing is to go to counseling. But I am out of time. That is all I have, unless you guys have anything else. If you guys, any of you guys have like information, like she said, calling your insurance company, or you know of some great resources, I would love to hear them. I want to share as much as I can, resources as much as I can, because it's hard. So, right. Thank you.
Before you leave our camera frame here, we want to say thank you and happy Mother's Day from the Utah Safety Council and our guests here today. With that being said, before I start crying, June 3rd, see you guys at our next hour of safety. It is National Safety Month, and we do have our special guest from NSC who will be joining us and speaking on National Safety Month. So thank you everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next month, and stay safe.